Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's April 21st, 2021, and today it's still snowing outside. We got a couple days of snow and cold, and I'm doing a little bit of physical recovering today. So I'm making a couple of videos and doing a few projects around here. So one of the things I was working on over the winter months was gathering up a lot of our files and data in VCR tapes or VHS tapes and DVDs, those cassette tapes, and so I've been trying to go through and digitize those, convert our old VHS tapes and all. And so you're going to see a couple of phases of our life in this video. Most people who've known us over recent years think of us now. They think of me as the farmer. For years they thought of Thea and I as being the veterinarians, Thea being the general practitioner, and me being the specialist. And those were roles we played in our lives in various phases of our lives. But there were other phases before this. And this is who we are as people. And in no way does this encompass everything, but I thought I'd give you a little bit of a background with a couple of old VHS tapes as well. But as I've mentioned before in previous videos, Thea and I both grew up somewhat similarly. I grew up here in Oswego, New York. Our home was a converted camp turned into a home. My dad did the major renovations to a campsite to make it a permanent home, just off the shore of Lake Ontario with a big swamp in our front yard, surrounded by forests, woodlands all around. The closest thing that came through was the railroad tracks through the area. And it was a wonderful time in my life, lots of exploration. I really gained a tremendous appreciation for nature and wildlife, and was awed by the aquatic environments, the lakes, the streams, all of those things as well, and all of the abundance of life all around us. I was in awe at that age. Thea had a similar background. She grew up just outside of New York City. Her dad was a cop initially, then a fireman in the Bronx, and built his home in White Plains, New York. And so Thea had the benefit, before it became a very populated area, had the benefit of growing up with a swamp near her and streams and woodland lots and all. So she got to explore nature and fell in love with animals as well. She's always been known as an animal lover, an absolute crazy animal lover. And you know, I wasn't known as that as a youngster, but eventually we did meet. Both of us were married previously. I came with 2 children. Thea came with horses and dogs and cats. And her marriage had just ended. Mine had ended probably a year before that. She lived over in the next road over from where we live now, and with a big farm area, and we both were working at the same location. She used to ride her horses across the property here as well. So we had many opportunities to meet, and we had sort of like very, very casual encounters. And then once we got together, Thea brought all her critters over here. We built the buildings, and since we both enjoyed being around all the animals so much, and we thought it was really good for the kids, we initially started off. One of the things that Thea loved to do, introduce me to, was hunter jumping. So English saddle, not Western saddle, riding the horses, going over jumps and trail riding, that sort of things. We did fox hunts as well, but no foxes were involved in our fox hunts. It was rather a gathering and an outing for people of like mind who like horseback riding and going through the woods and going over jumps and all. So that was fascinating, and I got the idea, geez, if we're going to have the expense of having all these horses, we both had really good jobs. There was an incentive for breeding thoroughbreds at that time. And I didn't know much about thoroughbred racing, but it seemed from all the movies I had seen and seen from the news clips and you know, learning about secretariat and all these these things that were going on in the early 80s, I decided let's go ahead and start a breeding farm. So we started raising thoroughbred horses. We had brood mares. We'd bring our brood mares to the studs. The studs would inseminate them, and we raised several horses here. Ultimately, we brought a Mystic, one of our horses that we raised, and when we raised them, we weren't just casual. We were very up to date with the science. We had heart rate monitors. Now this is years ago, so that was pretty advanced. And so we were science-based, it's called sports medicine at that time, workers in that sense. And so we put a lot of time and a lot of effort into properly conditioning these horses like Olympic athletes. And so there's a short clip of Mystic at the track. She didn't do well at the track, but I actually went, call it undercover. What I did do was I went to a different trainer and horse barn that was nearby, and I went in as basically with a pseudonym, and I worked there as a groom for I think it was 2 weeks. And I wanted to see what actually goes on when people aren't around, and I wasn't. I wasn't shocked. There wasn't overt beating of horses, but there was things that I thought that were just completely inappropriate. And everything that we had done to build up the horses, to get them strong and healthy, was basically undone by leaving the horses in a stall without having appropriate exercise. They get very brief exercise, nothing like what we would do. And so, I called Thea up from the track and I said, this is it. We got to get out of this. This isn't going to work for us. So then, we had decided to stop the business and just do our enjoy the animals as pets, basically. And Thea went on to a wildlife rehabilitation conference, and she called me up and said, I found what we're going to do. So this went into our next phase of life. And so we founded a 501c3, a not-for-profit corporation, because we originally started off just the two of us working our tails off, and it took all the money, the extra money that we had to invest in things, into taking care of the orphaned and injured wildlife. So after starting the 501c3, it still required all our financial resources and all our time, but we were able to go through another entire developmental phase of our lives where we took care of orphaned and injured wildlife. And there'll be a couple of video clips coming up soon that'll show some of the news clips. Now these are old VCR tapes from in the early 80s and old tapes, so we'll see how good they look. And while Thea and I were still working at the brewery, working at the can manufacturing system for Miller, we decided that it would be best, since we had our love for wildlife. I had gone to school at this point and gotten my undergraduate degree, and we decided to go off to Cornell and get our further education, get our doctorates in veterinary medicine and so on. But while we were there, I still worked, volunteered in the wildlife clinics, and we went to the Raptor Center and we did some work there. There's some video footage of us flying one of the eagles there as well. There'll be just a few seconds clips of that in the video as well. But that all happened before we became known as the small animal, meaning dogs and cats mainly, veterinarians, Thea being a general practitioner, still working. This is her last year working there, and me being, board certified in internal medicine. But my passion after that was I was known for the internists that work predominantly with critically ill patients and those that had chronic debilitating disease processes. Those ones that would be challenging, like heart disease and kidney disease at the same time, where the treatment for one is bad for the other disease and so on. So those were several phases of our lives in just a few minutes. And so what's going to show up now is a little bit of video clip, and I'll try to narrate over some of it in case there's any questions. So here we go.
We've told you stories before about people with no one to turn to when they come across an injured animal. Well, there is a sanctuary for the help and healing of injured birds hereabouts. It's so popular, though, it's being overwhelmed. Laura Hand has the story from Oswego County.
These are the lucky ones, birds rescued and now being nursed back to health.
90% of the animals that we see here at the center are the result of at some point in time, some encounter with some man-made object or man directly.
Here at Hidden Acres, they take care of orphaned and injured wildlife. At this time of year, it's mostly baby birds.
We'll just keep rehydrating because he's become dehydrated, and having a dehydrated body, he can't metabolize food properly.
There's certainly no shortage of animals and birds needing help around here. What there is a shortage of is people to help them.
That's a big problem because these birds get fed every hour, on the hour, from sunrise to sunset.
Kevin and Thea Wallace run Hidden Acres on donations with volunteers. And while they see a lot of this, their goal is to get their orphans here, back to nature.
That's the ultimate goal. That's really where it's all at for us, is letting those birds and mammals get back into the wild where they belong.
Laura Hand, Channel 3 News, Granby.
Makes it difficult for some animals to survive in the wild. And animals that are injured generally have to fend for themselves and nurse themselves back to health. But as Randy Winter reports, in Granby these days, sick animals are getting a helping hand from an organization that is positively Central New York.
Meet Honky, a white Chinese goose. Honky is the welcoming committee here at Hidden Acres, a place where injured animals are given a second chance at survival. It was started almost 2 years ago by Kevin and Thea Wallace, licensed wildlife rehabilitators. Well, since then, they've provided medical care for over 130 injured animals, not domestic pets, but wild animals.
He's been real active lately, acting more like a coon again.
Yeah. No more problem with anemia, no more problem with coughing or diarrhea. Good and healthy. Great.
Of course, you have to be adaptable to be able to take care of all spectrums of wildlife. There's just such a wide variety of animals that we deal with, which you never get bored with this job.
Good boy.
The center receives no federal or state aid. It relies on donations. A newly formed board of directors and group of volunteers help keep the center alive. More often than not, the animals' injuries here are caused by the progress of mankind.
I got 3 gulls here. We have 2 ring-billed gulls. They both had wing injuries from coming in contact with power lines. And the larger gull here, he ended up having a wing amputated, wasn't savable, and that was also some sort of collision with probably a power line or an automobile even.
This is the busiest time of year here when many orphan animals are brought to the center. But if all goes well, they'll be in good health and ready to return to the wild by fall.
It's just a really rewarding experience releasing an animal. Any release is just the most exhilarating experience of the day. It's always.
I enjoy doing it, and you meet a lot of people that want to help out, and they feel good about themselves too. So I'm happy now.
Man has done some things that we're, I'm not too proud of. And through us re-intervening and doing something more positive, we can hopefully set the record straight so we can all live on this planet peacefully.
They'll put their belief into practice in Rick Around Town next.
Town tonight, we go someplace special for animals, right, Rick?
Well, I thought in accordance with Earth Day coming up and wildlife this week, we have some very special people taking care of wildlife right in our very own area, too. Man has dog as his best friend. Wildlife has Hidden Acres Rehabilitation Center in Fulton as theirs.
Not everything's written down about him, but it looks like he's got some head trauma. Initially, I guess it does look like probably a motor vehicle accident. So that's what I'm going to do now, is do a quick exam and see what we can find wrong with him.
Wildlife like this rabbit are brought in on a daily basis by people who have found the injured animals and have a sense of responsibility to help them. Kevin Wallace, along with his wife, co-founded the center 4 years ago. It's not an easy job to treat wildlife, so most of their work is pioneer work. Covering up this rabbit's eyes will make it docile and easy to complete the exam.
I guess, a real compassion for animals.
But the bunny is not the only patient here.
This is an incubator that we keep all the little nestlings in. And we use these little margarine containers and all for these little buggers.
Is he going to make it, you think?
There's a good possibility he will. It's really tough when they're so dehydrated and so lethargic. When their body temperature, they become hypothermic. And birds really need constant feeding.
And just a few feet away, more bunnies.
A lot of the times people are doing their work around the house, and what happens is, you know, they're doing their spring cleaning, they disturb a nest, and their lawnmowers are a big reason for these guys coming in. He's okay, Buckers. Come on over and say hello.
This is Buckers. He had 2 broken legs after a tractor ran over him. But he can't be released to the wild because he's too tame. As you can see, he loves to unzip Kevin's jacket. This pond is home for a couple of special residents, Honky and Murphy. They have a very important job.
These guys are permanent residents pretty much here. A lot of them are one-legged. That's a one-legged male over there, one-legged females over there. But they raise all their babies.
There are 3 very important purposes to the Wildlife Center. Number 1 is to educate the public about wildlife. Number 2 is the research of wildlife. And number 3, the very important part of it, is releasing the rehabilitated animal to the wildlife, to its natural habitat, such as these great horned owls we're going to release right now.
I guess it's a goodbye. It's we say to each other, and his is more of a joyous goodbye. He couldn't wait, and that's just what I like. I like seeing that in their eyes, the wildness. He wanted nothing to do with me, and that was the best thing for me to see. That was great.
So that hopefully gave you a bit of an idea about who we were over the years and all. And you see us now, and right now you don't see Thea in too many of the videos because she's still working a significant number of hours trying to be the very best veterinarian that she can be. We're both excited about her retiring at the end of this year, and excited about the next changes or phases in our lives as well. You know, it's interesting. You sometimes forget that you had these other phases, or you were a different person at different times in your life, but they were pretty much foundational in each of our developments. You know, without having the opportunities to work with the horses, without the opportunities of a kid growing up where we did grow up, with being exposed to nature and wildlife, and then you know, working with wildlife in a not-for-profit center, you know, those things were essential for building the veterinarian that I ultimately became. And as veterinarians, we're known for our work typically with domesticated animals and all. And I know I've mentioned on the videos in the past that my true passion is nature and wildlife, which goes back to my youth growing up. Although we had chickens and we raised chickens for a while, and ducks and all, and the foxes would come and take them, and the hawks will come and take some of the birds at times and all. Although it's very upsetting to me at the moment that that sort of thing happens, it's just part of nature. It's part of what I know is right in nature and all. And so, you know, really not raising more chickens or ducks in the future, and being open to learning more and more about the wildlife as they come in and they migrate through and have their babies here. That is absolutely fascinating to me. And hopefully in the future I'll be able to, I'm hoping to be able to share more video footage of some of the wildlife when I do get the opportunity to record on video. I've got lots of still frames and all, but they just don't do it justice and all. And right now I'm just too busy. But photography or videography of the wildlife around here is just, I'm just get so excited. And the good thing is I don't have to go any place to do it. We've got such an abundance of life all around us here. So that's a little bit of an eye-opener for those of you who haven't gone back and seen all the videos from years ago. Some of our lives in some video format as well. So if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. If you found the video of value or entertainment, please give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends. And by all means, folks, take good care of yourselves, stay safe, and enjoy nature. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.